A very warm welcome to you from Barcelona. Once the Spanish Grand Prix, a new name for this year as we get set for the Barcelona Catalunya Grand Prix. It's round 7 of the FIA Formula One World Championship and the final year Formula One visits this circuit before it goes on rotation with Spa from 2027. The circuit de Catalunya has always been one of the great all-round tests. Just over 4.6 kilometers, 2.8 miles in length, 14 corners, and a layout that asks everything of the car. Front end grip through the medium and high speed sections, traction out of the slow corners, tyre management across a long race distance will be crucial. Pirelli going one step softer this year, the C2 hard, the C3 medium and the C4 soft. And in scorching conditions today, how those tyres hold up could define the afternoon. Track temperature is high, degradation will be a major factor, and strategy will be every bit as important as outright pace. Let's run you through how they line up then for the Barcelona Catalunya Grand Prix. From back to front, it will be a lonely Lance Stroll in 21st. His teammate Alonso will start from the pit lane. Just ahead of them then on row 10, it's the two Cadillacs. Sergio Perez ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Ahead of them, we'll see Alex Albon makes his 96th start for Williams. He'll be just behind Esteban Ocon in the Haas from 17th. Carlos Sainz makes it two Spaniards not inside the top 15, and it's Williams from 16th, just behind Ollie Bearman. Alpine lock out 13th and 14th. Franco Colapinto ahead of Pierre Gasly. Just outside of the top 10 then, it's Gabriel Bortoleto in 12th, with Arvid Lindblad disappointed to miss out on Q3 yesterday. Most disappointed will go to Charles Leclerc. That crash in qualifying yesterday leaving him down in 10th. Nico Hülkenberg's first top 10 start of the year. Liam Lawson continues his good form, 8th for Racing Bulls, behind Oscar Piastri in the McLaren and Red Bull. 5th and 6th, Max Verstappen ahead of Isaac Hadjar. On the second row, the reigning world champion Lando Norris lines up in 4th behind the current championship leader Kimi Antonelli, and that is your front row. Lewis Hamilton in 2nd, and on pole position is George Russell. His 10th career pole in his 100th Grand Prix for Mercedes, 150th pole for Mercedes as well. And Martin Brundle, who is alongside me, up in the commentary box. We talk about pressure. They were talking about it down there. Nico saying there's no pressure for George Russell along with Jacques, because all he's got to do is win. He's that far back in the points.
Yeah, absolutely, yes, but there are an awful lot of points to come this year yet, and of course he can't afford to go away with no points with a first corner shunt. So it's a massive drag race down there, and you've got Russell and Hamilton on the front row of the grid punching a hole in the air for the rest of the pack behind them. But this afternoon is going to be all about managing the tyres and how many stops are they going to have to make. It would be really silly to have a first corner accident. But of course, at the same time, you can't sort of go in too steadily because somebody ran into the back of you. So it's got to be a really firm tackle, as it were. But if in doubt, do not trip over somebody else, because that's not going to be the story. The story will be how long can you keep your tyres intact. Yeah, over those 66 laps that we have, 2, 3, maybe even more stops, depending on any kind of safety car interventions. That long run down from pole to turn 1, about 565 metres. It will seem like an age for the likes of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, who will line up on that front row. For us across the race in race control will be Karun Chandok. Good afternoon, Karun.
Good afternoon, Harry, Martin, everyone listening at home. Fascinating strategies about to unfold. We're talking about a mix in 2 and 3 stops. Ferrari have gone aggressive. They are going to start Lewis Hamilton on a set of soft tyres. They are going to try and focus on trying to get to the first corner first and out of the first corner first. Crucially, Max Verstappen also starting on a set of soft tyres. Martin, we were talking to Ferrari earlier. We asked them the question, if you lead on lap 1, can you have the pace to win the Grand Prix? And they thought they would.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a bold strategy, though, because those tyres won't hang on very long, but it might gain you track position out front. You can keep your car cooler. You can control the pace of the race. Maybe it's a very long pit straight if somebody is desperate to come past you. But that gives him about a half a car's length off the line, about 4 metres. They're 8 metres apart, but that's a good start. And the second phase of the start as well, when they hit the second and third gear and really pile the power on, Hamilton will have a little bit more mechanical grip from his soft tyres over George Russell. But if it doesn't pay off for any reason, then they've kind of got double trouble, but we'll see. There's going to be a lot of cars trundling down the pit lane today to get a fresh set of tyres.
I think we're going to be rather busy across the next couple of hours, and certainly I think that pit lane is going to be busy. We talk about the heat and the temperature. Air temperature just above 30 degrees C. Track temperature just tipping over 51 degrees as well, as they continue out there on their formation lap, trying to get temperatures under control and up to where they want it. George Russell, as we say, will start this race on the medium tyre. Hamilton on the soft, Antonelli and Norris behind, both on the mediums. Max Verstappen down in 5th. Actually surprised themselves, Red Bull, with their qualifying pace. Yes, they thought they'd be further off than they were, starting on the soft tyre. We have to go all the way down to the back of the pack, and really running their own kind of race will be Aston Martin. Lance Stroll's going to start on the hard tyre. Fernando Alonso from the pit lane will start on that hard tyre as well. So we'll have 21 cars lining up on the grid. And for George Russell, he won't want to be lying here in his grid spot for too long.
He's right on the yellow line as George Russell at the front of his pit box. They know how important it is down there. Antonelli a little bit behind his yellow line as the reference point that goes, because you can't see the front of the car. They're a long line out the side. You can see the yellow line there to give the driver half a chance to look through the bodywork and see where they should be lining up. But as Alonso is obliged to go in the pit lane for a pit lane start because of the power unit changes already mentioned, but Verstappen too on those soft tyres. I think he could be quite a menace down there into the first corner.
I think there might be a few menaces across the course of this race. Got a few midfield runners who fancy their chances at stealing a point or two as well. Watch out for Nico Hülkenberg down in 9th. He'll be starting on the soft tyre, trying to make use of that traction. But Mercedes are strong again this weekend. George Russell's been right back in the conversation, but around Barcelona, the race can come back to you very quickly if the tyres start to fade. Can Mercedes turn promise into victory? Can McLaren apply any pressure? And what about Lewis Hamilton in that Ferrari starting on the front row? On pole position is George Russell with the best view in the house. A long run down to turn 1. It's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in Barcelona. And it's a good start from George Russell, who immediately cuts across to keep Lewis Hamilton behind. Watch out for Lando Norris and Kimi Antonelli side by side behind. Hamilton holds second as they sweep into turn 1. Norris hounding Antonelli, but the top 3 as they started.
And Verstappen then has made up places. He's now splitting the 2 McLarens. He's on the outside though. Will he make that stick all the way down to turn 4? And the answer is not yet.
Oscar Piastri having a little look down the inside of the Red Bull coming through turn 4, but for George Russell out in front, doing what he needs to do. And actually it's the other Mercedes that's just feeling a little bit pressurised with Lando Norris. Get good traction out of the corner. That forces Antonelli to defend, but it's one by one up through the hill towards turn 9.
Verstappen very feisty as expected and going well on those tyres, but Charles Leclerc already up 3 places to 7th.
Yeah, really good start from Charles Leclerc. Russell first though leads the way, then comes Hamilton, Antonelli in 3rd, behind Antonelli, Norris, then Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri right behind, and it was a pretty poor start though for Isaac Hadjar. A slow start again for the Red Bull. He's right down there in the mid-pack, finds himself just ahead of the Audi of Gabi Bortoleto, who also had a tough start. They're mixing it with the Haas cars.
Yeah, absolutely. He's
and he runs out wide for good measure as well. Picks up the gravel, so too does Bortoleto. That might allow a move there. Good starts further back. Arvid Lindblad's up into the points in 10th. Nico Hulkenberg in 9th, ahead of Nico Hulkenberg. Colapinto just behind in 11th.
So perfect first lap for George Russell. He can control the pace. He's already beyond the overtake mode reference point of 1 second that'll be enabled this lap. So, and he's on the right tyres as well to extend. So the perfect scenario for Russell, and he's got to now hope that his teammate Antonelli can come at at Lewis Hamilton in second place.
Lovely move there we just saw from Esteban Ocon around the outside of his teammate, but there is a tyre disparity there. Ocon on the soft tyre, Behrman running on the medium, so hoping to go a little bit longer. But in these temperatures, we're hearing that really there's not a lot of difference between those soft compounds. But as we're halfway through lap 2 now, really good start from Russell, over half, 1.5 seconds clear of Lewis Hamilton. Those soft tyres will start to fade a little earlier. Antonelli, Norris and Verstappen the top 5 as it starts to stabilise.
The tactics for Red Bull with Max Verstappen is they've kept 2 brand new sets of the yellow marked medium tyres. Will that be an advantage or not later on? We'll keep an eye on that, and that's why they would have started on the softs. You don't want to waste your starting tyres. You're scrabbling around in the pack, in the dirty air, full tanks of fuel. You want to use those new tyres when you're in a little bit more stabilised situation.
According to Pirelli, if you are on that medium tyre, you want to try and make it maybe to around lap 15. We might see those first pit stops, but it could come sooner, it could come later. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But Isaac Hadjar further down in the field after that slow start. Another one, the Red Bull really struggling with their starts, trying to catch up to the back of Carlos Sainz this time. Sainz driving defensively through the right-hander, but sweeping around the outside. Nicely done for the Frenchman in the Red Bull. As further up in the pack, the Racing Bulls of Liam Lawson. This is over 8th place, keeping Nico Hülkenberg at bay in 9th.
Yeah, Hülkenberg with a great qualifying, getting into Q3, the final top 10 shootout for Audi, and running 9th at the moment. And they're really in their own race, I would say. This is Mercedes, followed by Ferrari, then McLaren, and the one Red Bull that's up the front at the moment. That's where the race is. And then there's going to be an almighty fight from Lawson back for the rest of the points.
Certainly is. Further back, Fernando Alonso got going from the pit lane and has caught up to the back of Lance Stroll. Lindblad leaving the track and gaining an advantage. That has been noted by race control. The same for Nico Hülkenberg, who just popped up a few moments ago. We'll be keeping an eye on that. That 4 of 66. That gap extends between Russell and Hamilton to 2 seconds now.
Yeah, I think it was Lindblad wide around the outside of the first corner of the race. So Verstappen 22.7. It's not a great lap time there for Max, and they have been struggling. When I was out on track on Friday, he was hacksawing away at the wheel, really struggling to keep the car on track at the end of a much longer run. He'll be very pleased to get rid of these soft tyres as soon as possible. They probably were even hoping for an early safety car to help them with that. But at the moment, the pack, they were very well behaved in the first few corners, and it's strung out a little bit.
Yeah, 50% chance of a safety car around this circuit, so that will weigh heavy in the strategist's head. Talk of the Red Bull, though, after that atrocious start and retirement for Max Verstappen last time out, I think he'll at least be pleased he got going. Isaac Hadjar, though, I'd love to see a little replay of the start and see what happened to Hadjar and how far back he fell.
I'm not sure I want to hear his radio call, though, because he normally goes nuclear at that moment. But it's not a laughing matter for him, because it's costing him serious results in Formula One, trying to get that Red Bull away from a standing start. It's a hugely complex procedure, and there's a lot of feel, and it's also, in my experience, in your head as well half the time, a good or a bad start. But once again then, Russell now 2.5 seconds out front on the right tyres, in the clear air, controls his pace, not sliding around in the turbulent air of another car, which is what's happening to Kimi Antonelli, who at the moment cannot get up to the gearbox of Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. So these early phases, I was looking out the window at this, Hamilton actually got away initially better than Russell, looking down on top of that, but the Russell then had a tremendous sort of second phase, whereas the Ferrari unusually didn't, because that's what they were doing earlier on in the year. Lewis thinking about going around the outside, then it's getting really close there with Norris and Antonelli. There are the 2 cars that cut through the runoff on the first corner. So Leclerc is going to have a good start. That's Hadjar starting slow. Ooh, wow. Starting slowly.
That was a bit too close for comfort for Charles Leclerc. Hadjar did get away, but just slowly, and fell all the way down. And Charles Leclerc, quick reactions from the Monegasque and going toe-to-toe with the Racing Bulls as well. Right now, he's just ahead of Liam Lawson on track in 7th. Here is Hadjar's on board.
Too much wheel spin. That's what happened to him. He didn't bog down, he just lit up the rear tyres. And it's really hard when you're out of sync with the pack at the start of any motor race. Really hard, because it's so easy to trip over people because they're just running a different pace to you.
Pierre Gasly started 14th, made up a few positions. See the cars going off the track ahead of him, and that's actually now been elevated to under investigation.
Lindblad will say I was pushed off the track. The Audi doesn't really have an... it would be Hülkenberg, wouldn't it? Didn't really have an excuse there.
And this was the move we caught as well of Esteban Ocon going round the outside of his teammates, but Ocon on the soft tyre, and Behrman going for a slightly different strategy to his teammate, as it looks like Hadjar's just managed to get ahead of Gasly. But under investigation then for leaving the track and gaining advantage down in 9th and 10th, Hülkenberg and Lindblad, as a problem for Lance Stroll, who heads down to pit lane, which is where we find Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, so might not be the last retirement of the day, but it does look like it's a retirement for Lance Stroll. The car engine seemed to be running, but not very quickly. A lot of brake smoke. I'll find out the reason as soon as I can, but they're retiring that Aston Martin. Hopefully it won't be the same for his teammate Fernando Alonso, what might be his last Barcelona Grand Prix, but we'll see.
Thanks, Ted. Yeah, disappointment for Lance Stroll there, who had, well, a small thing to smile about yesterday in qualifying his teammate Fernando Alonso for the first time in about 42 races, but the Grand Prix not the case. Lap 7 of 66 then, and Russell really just holding steady at the front, keeping the gap at around that 3-second mark, fastest lap as well, and really you'd expect Kimi Antonelli in third to start reeling in Lewis Hamilton. This is Hamilton's teammate, Charles Leclerc, heading down to turn 1, and that was a bit too close into the back of Oscar Piastri.
Well, he was a bit close in the first corners of the race, wasn't he? And that was nearly the second Ferrari nose wiped out there. But it was interesting to see just how much later Leclerc could brake. Unfortunately, there was nowhere to go when he got there.
I wonder as well, worth remembering that on the way to the grid, Kimi Antonelli wasn't happy with his brakes. At a long brake pedal, they managed to get some of the fluid out of it and drained it ahead of the start of the race, but just something to keep an eye on.
I was amazed there through 7 and 8, turn 7 and 8, just how much all the cars are sliding already, whichever tyre they're on. The two McLarens were drifting through there. You can see the back end of Leclerc's car trying to break away. There it is again, just sliding yaw, we call it. And the drivers are now in massive management mode, just trying to survive this phase while they're on full tanks of fuel.
Hadjar's fight back continues round the outside at 4, and you can see the sliding there from Franco Colapinto on the Alpine, Pierre Gasly, who is further down. Here we come then, Charles Leclerc all over the back of Oscar Piastri once again, heading down into turn 1. Feels like Piastri slightly compromised through turn 2. Round the right-hander at 3, Leclerc's going to have the advantage, the momentum round the outside, wheel to wheel. The Ferrari gets a nose ahead, but Piastri will have the inside line. But the writing is on the wall. Leclerc makes the move.
The McLaren's all over the place. The Piastri's really struggling just to almost keep it in a straight line there. So that enabled Leclerc to breeze past around the outside of the infamous turn 3. That's such a long corner. And that's the story about this racetrack. There are fast, long corners, so the temperature just builds up and up and up. And unlike Silverstone and Spa that have got similar sort of high-speed long corners, but they've got long straights in between quite often. This place hasn't.
Seeing the cars slide through here all weekend long. Hadjar mounting a comeback, trying to get inside the top 10. The Frenchman having started 6th, bogged down, wheel spin galore, falling all the way down the pack. And now his next target will be Arvid Lindblad, the British rookie, who has won round here in Formula 3 machinery and Formula 2 machinery as well. And I'm sure it won't be too long before Hadjar is finding his way past Arvid Lindblad. Right, end of lap, or crossing over into lap 9 of 66. Let's head over to Sky Race Control. Karim.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. Just listening into the radio, it looks like Kimi Antonelli's brakes are okay. He's not reporting any issues there. See Hadjar in the slipstream. I'll let you do this one.
Yeah, Lindblad moves to the inside to try and defend, and he will defend it wheel to wheel once again through turn 1, and Hadjar really has to bail out of it, almost takes to the escape road. Thought that might have been a little easier than it was. Lindblad holding the position, wants another points finish off the back of Monaco 2, does Arvid Lindblad, holding on to 10th place and 1 precious point for the time time being.
And Colapinto and Gasly in the Alpines taking completely different lines around that turn 3, trying to keep the tyres alive. But that looks pretty racy between those two.
Orlando, how's the pace, how's the tyres?
Just, yeah, sliding everywhere.
Sliding everywhere for Lando Norris, sliding too for the two Alpines. Colapinto on the soft tyre versus Gasly on the medium. Back to you, Crew.
Yeah, the leaders are looking now at the gap between Oscar Piastri and Liam Lawson. So Lawson lapping at the 125s, Russell up at the front in the 123s. That gap is now already a pit stop. So Lawson is already 22.3 seconds behind Russell.
A good point, Karun, and also with the undercut, as we call it, if you get in and get a set of tyres on before your main rival that you're fighting at that particular time of the race, you'll gain at least 2 seconds on them. So that's important for George Russell out front. He can afford to wait one lap and react and not have to be the first to to pull the trigger, to come into the pits with that 3.4, now 3.5 second lead. So if he can just keep building that, it gives him a comfort zone, and he can go one lap further than Hamilton, Antonelli, Norris and co, and still very much stay out in the lead.
Last lap around for George Russell, a 1:23.1. Compare that to Hamilton, a 1:23.4. Antonelli another 10th behind. Speaking to a few people ahead of this race, this is a track where if you have the track advantage, you can drive in a way to keep that car behind you. Just slightly slower out of the corners. All that hot air off the back of the car. After a while, the driver behind is not going to want any of it if they can't have enough of a pace advantage to try for the overtake.
The front-running car struggling most, and Gasly trying to get the team to move him past his teammate Franco Colapinto is what that call is about. The front-running team driver struggling most is Oscar Piastri. He's already now 3 seconds behind Charles Leclerc there. And he hasn't got a pit stop gap behind him, and falling away very quickly since he got overtaken. Piastri really struggling for grip.
Max Verstappen might find himself under pressure here. Charles Leclerc is closing in on him for 5th. This is a good start to the Barcelona Grand Prix for Charles Leclerc after that heartbreak in qualifying yesterday, but just a little bit behind at the moment to mount a charge. It's coming though. Ted.
It's not the only thing that's coming, I tell you. Some pit stops are coming, Harry, down at Ferrari here. So having not been able to worry George Russell off the line with the soft tyre, Lewis Hamilton has been looking after those tyres very, very well. He's stabilised the gap at 3.5 seconds. He's looking after the soft tyres as well as he can, but we're just about to enter the soft tyre window, and I can just see some Ferrari mechanics preparing themselves. Whoa, they're coming into the pit box. Wow, okay, I didn't think it would be this lap.
A lot for the tyres. I'm even wobbling on the straight. It's quite impressive.
Copy.
And Max Verstappen saying he's struggling on the tyres
okay.
as well.
So it looks like Lewis has had enough of the soft tyres. The hard tyres are out for the 7-time world champion.
Thanks, Ted. And Hamilton is in the pit lane, heading towards his Ferrari mechanics, marks his stops and tries to be as quick as possible.
So Mercedes will have to react to this now. They can't afford to let Lewis have 2 laps on fresh tyres, so expect to see Russell in next time around. Antonelli, he's only 5.5 seconds behind Russell. It's a little bit difficult to double stack the Mercs, but will they try to do that?
With that, Liam Lawson also coming in further down in the mid-pack and now drops out of the top 10. There is the Racing Bulls team, and it's slightly slow on the rear right by the looks of it for the Kiwi, who is sent on his way and back into this race. 6.3 seconds, Ferraris with 2.5.
Well, remember, it was Lawson, wasn't it? It was the front runner of the pack that was stopping the leaders from pitting.
So Lewis in. He's already going for a 3.
Lovely move from Fernando Alonso on the Cadillac down the inside into turn 1. Won't see too much of that in this race, but makes the move, and Bottas is going to try and fight back. Alonso gets it.
So that's basically George saying and thinking very clearly there, but what he's saying, don't react to that. It's going to 3-stop, but I think they have reacted to it because I think they have to. So he slows it down at the speed limit line. I think they have to keep track position, keep him in clear air out front.
And Max Verstappen then also being told to box and come into the pit lane. So nice and quick from George Russell, just under 2.5 seconds, the race leader, feeding back out into this race. Max Verstappen next to come in. Let's see where this puts Lewis Hamilton. He's coming on the start-finish straight now on the hard tyre. Nice stop as well for Red Bull, 2.5 seconds. Russell looks like he feeds out back into this race in the top 5. Hamilton makes his way up into 6th, and Max Verstappen's gonna feed out into a bit of traffic.
Yeah, we want to see the Hamilton-Russell thing, though, because Hamilton's tyres are up to temperature. Russell's came out of the blankets at 70 degrees, trundled down the pit lane, and then you've got to get them in the window. But for George Russell, at least his tyres have done 1 lap less than Lewis Hamilton in terms of his race, and he has kept track position. They didn't want to get him in traffic. They didn't want to get him in the dirty air, tumbling off the back of that Ferrari.
Yeah, there is that Ferrari, and just up the road is the Mercedes of Russell. Right now on the road, 5th and 6th. Ted.
Just some of my Spidey strategy senses are telling me this is too early for George Russell and is handing a balanced strategy, potentially a faster strategy, to Kimi Antonelli. I thought it was a good radio message. Radio?
It's McLaren telling Lando to box. He's coming in.
This is all quite early for people who started on the medium tyre. Medium tyre, by the way, the one that Max Verstappen has put on at his pit stop. So we see the hard tyre going on there to the McLarens. But Kimi Antonelli was told on the radio by Bono, his engineer, OK, now that that's Lewis out of the way, now we can really get going. And if Antonelli can run a more balanced strategy, that could be the quicker way to complete the race.
As Norris feeds out back into this race in that McLaren, down in 6th, will be ahead of the recovering Isaac Hadjar, who is yet to pit. Karoon.
Yeah, George Russell thinks the same as you, Ted. He's come on the radio saying, you've exposed me now. I was managing that first stint. You could have given me the heads up. You've exposed me to Kimi now. So he's already thinking he might have pitted too early. Marcus Dudley's race engineer coming back saying, don't worry, I think it's going to be long. It's not going to be long for everyone. So they expect Kimi to pit soon. Let's keep an eye out.
There is your new race leader, Kimi Antonelli. Earlier than imagined then for stops, but we're expecting a few more. This is Max Verstappen. Let's hear from Russell, though.
I was managing in that first stint. You could have given me the heads up. You've exposed me to Kimi now.
I don't think it's going to be long for everyone.
I need an update on the plan then. We're moving towards the breeze, you think?
So still on plan here, George. Nothing to worry about here.
Yeah,
and there's the confirmation.
Medium's out of the way. They've got 2 brand new sets of hard compound tyres, and there then is, as expected, Kimi Antonelli in the pits, which will calm George down quite a lot out front.
Hamilton has the fastest lap as Antonelli is serviced by Mercedes and sent back on his way. Charles Leclerc now inherits the lead, yet to stop. Russell back up into 2nd. Let's see for Kimi Antonelli coming out back into this race. Hamilton goes through. There is Antonelli. There is the McLaren behind as the Italian makes his way down into turn 1. It's Norris in the McLaren behind him, Norris in 5th, Antonelli ahead.
We normally get a bit of a different phase, don't we, when they get on, especially on this track, get onto a different compound of tyre. Let's see whose car is working better. They'll give it a twist to front wing as Leclerc now is asked to visit the pits, and it'll all shake out again, and we have a set 2. So Max Verstappen has put on one of those 2 new sets of medium compound tyres that he's got. The other front runners have all got 2 hard compound sets, brand spanking new, and you want them. They can lose 0.6 of a second after their first lap, and then you bargain on your tyre degradation around this circuit, about 0.1 of a second per lap.
And box Charles, box. We have the gap to cover Piastri.
We don't care about Piastri. Let's look further ahead if we have the pace.
Okay, let me know on flat. We stay out this lap then. Stay out this lap.
So Charles Leclerc extending then. Worth remembering that Leclerc, due to that crash yesterday in qualifying, he has an extra set of new softs available to him as we get a look at those tyres, Martin.
They've got a look, what we call pickup on them. If you run wide, you discarded rubber. The right front's a bit of a passenger around here. That is why it gets pickup on it, because it's a clockwise circuit and every key corner is a right-hander. So it's the front left and the 2 rears that take the punishment. The right front, they have a different geometry on it, almost like an IndyCar does on the ovals, but a different geometry, because most of the time the right front's a passenger, and that is why that particular one looked a bit ugly.
Hajar continuing his fight back after his slow start, now has his pit stop, feeds back just ahead of the Audi as they make their way through turns 1 and 2. Nico Hulkenberg losing out there to a recovering Hajar. Hulkenberg, who started inside the top 10, as Bottas is told to retire the car. We have an issue. We've already lost Lance Stroll from this race. Looks like we'll lose the Cadillac as well. Charles Leclerc told to box again, having been told so last lap around, wanting to extend out there, having started this race down in 10th. Let's see if he comes in again after that pit stop, predicted to come out ahead of Oscar Piastri. He's down in 7th, and here he is.
The team have got a lot of clever people on the pit wall, in the garage and back at base, looking at all the drivers on the track and all sorts of information, and you've got to trust them. You've got to you can't start engineering and strategizing a car from the cockpit. You can contribute, I think you can contribute, but in the end you've got to trust your team. And meanwhile, Carlos Sainz is under investigation for a start line procedure, and we know how that played out for Sergio Perez back in Monaco last time out.
Yeah, one of two of Carlos Sainz's home races this year not going the way he wants it to. Leclerc feeds back out into this race in 6th, ahead of the man we ride on board with now, Oscar Piastri.
In fact, both Williams cars are under investigation for a start line procedure.
Indeed. So as one Cadillac now finds its way back into the garage, and our second retirement of the race. Karun.
Yeah, just to add to that point on Leclerc, Martin, he had dropped into the high 123s and even a 24.0. So remember, he was right on the back of Max Verstappen's gearbox. He's come out 8.6 seconds behind Verstappen by extending that stint. So Leclerc, by going 4 laps longer, ended up losing a lot of time. He's hoping, of course, that'll pay dividends later on.
And crucially, he's got a little bit of free air ahead of him as well, as he's just making his way around turn 13 now. Verstappen, the next car in front.
Hearing from the Sky Gallery that Williams may have had some equipment on the grid outside of the regulations, the 15-second final warning.
So doubly frustrating then for the drivers, not entirely in their control on that front. Hajar trying to make its way up the inside of Ollie Behrman's Haas and up into 9th, and does so before the final corner, and the Red Bull starts to speed away down the start-finish straight.
That's a very unorthodox place to overtake, but Hajar with his fresh tyres, and of course Behrman is still on his original start tyres.
Yeah, so Arvid Lindblad is the highest of the non-pit stoppers right now. He's up in 8th at the moment, having started just outside of the top 10.
And all of those investigations earlier on about forcing other drivers off the track or getting an unfair advantage at turn 1, they've all been annulled. No further investigation.
OK, gaps starting to appear once again. Now we've had the first main flurry of pit stops for Oscar Piastri. At times looking incredibly strong this weekend, and then just faded in the final parts of qualifying yesterday. Finds himself down in 7th, which is where he started this race.
He's treading on eggshells with the throttle. Just listen, how long he's off the power, and then he just so gently squeezes it on, just trying to eke a lot more distance out of this set of tyres. That lovely groove of racing line there. Ride the curb through the exit. Stay roughly on the left-hand side. It's a right-hander coming up. A nice downhill sweep. Braking super late. You've got a bit of harvesting to do in the battery, but that then is as close as Piastri's been for a little while, and he looks slightly more competitive, doesn't he? Or more competitive on these tyres.
And poor old Oliver Behrman has just been done once again into the same corner, turn 13. This time Liam Lawson makes his way through, and Behrman has finally called time on those medium tyres as he comes into the pits for Haas.
Yeah, and there's no point in hanging on to a set of tyres that have had it for 5 laps. That's 10 seconds at least you'll lose. That's half a pit stop. You've got to be on the right tyre at the right time. There's no point in just hanging it out, really. Especially this afternoon with the
slightly
track.
longer pit stop as well. Sorry, Martin, 3.6 seconds. Just interested to see how that battle plays out between Behrman and Ocon, who were wheel to wheel at one point. It looked like they're on alternative strategies. No points up for grabs for those down there at this stage. Ocon 15th and Behrman down in 20th as Charles Leclerc continues to circulate out on track ahead of Oscar Piastri in 6th and 7th. George Russell holding at around 2 seconds lead over Lewis Hamilton. Picture riding on board with Nico Hülkenberg's Audi, who is chasing a first point of the year as we arrive at round 7 of this Formula 1 World Championship. Nico Hülkenberg, well, had a taste of points last time out in Monaco, but a penalty denied him of it. Desperate to try and open his account for 2026. Had an amazing race here last year in the Sauber team, made his way up into 5th with a bit of a chaotic race and strategy, helping the German on his way, but chasing Lawson for that point right now.
Okay, Franco, this is an instruction. We need to switch cars into turn 1, please. Switch into turn 1.
Switch cars.
Hey, firm. Into turn 4, please. Turn 4, switch the cars.
It's 1.5 seconds work. What are you pushing?
So Franco Colapinto being asked to switch positions. It looks like that has already happened. Gasly now ahead of Colapinto, and I think we're going to get a look at it now, and he does have to massively lift off, does Colapinto, going into turn 10.
Yeah, it cost him 2 seconds to let his teammate through, but the team's impression is that in clearer air, Gasly will be moving forward. But Colapinto's like, well, I'm not pushing at the moment. We're in a tyre preservation phase. I can go faster if I want to, but pretty much all Formula 1 contracts as a cornerstone is you will follow team instructions at all times.
Kimi Antonelli then running a little on his own, out there in 3rd place with Lewis Hamilton a few seconds up the road and being told we are on plan C. 3 stops for Lewis Hamilton. We'll see. Karun, what have you got for us? Or as we just take a look at, before we come to you, Karun, Hadjar lining up Arvid Lindblad, and this is going to be pretty easy for the Frenchman to the middle of the road ahead of the British rookie in the junior team, and by the time they get to turn 1, Hadjar is back up into 8th place.
Now, we'll keep an eye on Hadjar's times, but his sort of next up the road for him then is Oscar Piastri, but he'll have to find some pace. Fastest man on the track by margin last time around, Charles Leclerc in 6th place, enjoying these fresher hard compound tyres.
Happy with pushing?
Hey, firm, Kimi. Good lap times.
So the team happy then for Kimi Antonelli to be pushing out there on his hard tyres. Last lap around a 1:22.0, half a second quicker than his teammate George Russell out in front, who we heard from him after the first stint was very much preserving those tyres. Is he doing so again?
Yeah, George will be like, don't do that to me again, because there's no point in bringing tyre life back into the pit lane. You want to spend it all out on the racetrack if you want to win this race.
Right, let's try again, shall we? Karun, race control, what do you got for us?
Yeah, just listening in some George Russell radio, they've told him the next 7 laps are critical for our race. So make of that what you might. I think they've seen Hamilton had a little bit of a push. They can see Antonelli now has got a bit more pace, but that's the tyre offset. Antonelli pitting 2 laps later than George, 3 laps later than Lewis. Let's keep an eye on Antonelli because he came out 6.4 seconds behind Hamilton. The gap now under 4.
You certainly will. Thanks, Karun, as getting a little closer in the midfield. Might get some action there over the course of the next few laps too.
Yeah, and I talked before about it, about Russell having the luxury of waiting another lap and being able to react to others rather than having to drive the decision of when to pit. He hasn't got that at the moment at 2.2 seconds. That Hamilton will make that up on him if he pits a lap earlier.
One thing, though, to bear in mind, already traffic is going to start having an impact on this race. Russell heading down to turn 1 now, and he is about to catch Sergio Perez's Cadillac. Then he meets the likes of Ollie Behrman's Haas, so he's catching up to the back of the pack. I was about to say, doing a magnificent job out there and just surviving on tyres was Fernando Alonso and Arvid Lindblad. Alonso is last in this race right now. He has finally come into the pits to have a fresh set of boots applied. Lindblad, though, still going out there. Where is he at the moment? He's up in 9th for Lindblad, with his teammate Lawson closing in on him.
This is going to come alive as Antonelli gets his first track limits warning. This is going to come alive in the closing stages.
Leclerc is still very much in our race behind, which is what Max Verstappen is told. And there is Verstappen on the left of your picture, Charles Leclerc. Closing last lap around for Verstappen, a 1:22.8. Leclerc 0.8. Verstappen. Yeah, Leclerc 0.8 of a second quicker as Lindblad comes into the pits as well. But what do we have here? The Racing Bulls of Lindblad is in the pits. Liam Lawson is out on track. And Lawson battling with that Audi of Hulkenberg still over 9th and 10th as Lindblad rejoins this race. Should be behind the other Audi of Bortoleto down in 16th.
Leclerc is catching Verstappen very quickly. He'll be with him in 5 laps if they carry on at this pace. So that's why they were alerting Max Verstappen to that situation. George Russell, a 23.2 going through the traffic. He kind of needs to pick up the pace a little bit, does George, in this phase. And I think that's what they were telling him. If he's got any more pace, he needs to start delivering it because Antonelli's coming at him. The gap down to 4.9 seconds now. Antonelli in third to Russell in first. Hamilton down to 2 seconds. A little bit traffic affected.
All it takes, though, is a yellow flag, a virtual safety car, a safety car, and suddenly you're thinking on your feet and the race turns around. Critical phase of the race, this.
And that depends especially where you are on the racetrack when it's thrown. If you've just passed the pit entry, it's a bit of a misery.
Certainly is, and George Russell and Mercedes hoping that if they catch it in the right place, and making their way down the start-finish straight once again. Nico Hulkenberg desperate to get through on the Racing Bulls of Liam Lawson. Lawson defends the position, really hounding the steering wheel. Hulkenberg's looking racy here, but so too is Lawson. Lawson, who has scored in pretty much every round bar one up to this point. Nico Hulkenberg yet to open his account in the points in 2025. And as they fight, they're bringing in Pierre Gasly's Alpine. Vindication from Alpine then to swap those two cars around. It's a three-way fight for 9th place.
Hulkenberg loves the high line in some of these corners. I thought it was a bit dirty out there, but he obviously thinks that's keeping his tyres a little bit better intact by not putting quite so much turn into it.
Right on the braking.
I was expecting that call. I was just about to say he will have been on the radio because Liam Lawson was a touch late in his defence down into the first corner.
Still fighting there, and while Hulkenberg, though, has to watch out for that, he's just slowed down a tad, let some air cool down his tyres, but he can't do that for too long because Gasly is right behind him, 9th, 10th and 11th.
To be fair to Alpine, they did the right thing, didn't they?
Yeah.
Letting Gasly through because it's energised his race and their team position because they're all squabbling over the last few World Championship points, 8th, 9th and 10th.
Gasly lurking behind in that pink and blue. Alpine has scored points in all 6 Grand Prix weekends this season, including being reinstated his podium in Monaco. That may well still be appealed, but for now, he gets the full 15 points that come with 3rd place and maybe the trophy at some point in the next week or two. That's happening further down the field on the periphery of the points. Lap 26 of 66. Lando Norris down in 4th right now.
Yeah, Lando had to get out of it through the last corner to find some grip. But you know what? He's 6 seconds off the lead and in the low 1:22s. He's still all right, Lando. He's still sort of hanging on, really, to the fight for this Grand Prix and certainly for a podium.
Up front, George and Lewis still keeping a fairly familiar amount of ground between them. 2.5 seconds the gap. Last lap around, a 1:23.0 for Russell, a 1:23.2 for Lewis Hamilton. Antonelli is the one that is going significantly quicker, and this is what Nico Hulkenberg wasn't very happy about, Martin.
Yeah, it's moving in the braking zone. You're not allowed to do that.
And meanwhile, in the other Audi of Gabriel Bortoleto, down the inside of the Haas of Esteban Ocon, and he makes 14th place. Bortoleto, who has been struggling really since free practice 1, and out-qualified by his teammate Hulkenberg. trying to see if they can make it a double points finish. The front wheels a bit weak, under balance from George Russell. What's he meaning there, Martin?
I need a bit of front wing, need a twist. I need some more aero balance to the front. Front feels a bit weak. So on his final pit stop, he's obviously he's cycled through now. The rules are you've got to use 2 different compounds. He's done that now with a medium and a hard, as have they pretty much all. He will pit again, and he's saying, give me a couple of twists on the front wing, please.
Just saw Arvid Lindblad further back, steam past Esteban Ocon for 15th. Ocon starting to struggle out there now on those hard tyres. So Lando Norris then is looking quick of those top 5 drivers, and he's going to bring the fight to Antonelli if he can keep that up. Ted?
Just to remind you of the 3 stop windows. So if we get to lap 31, and they're all 30 actually, if they start pitting, then it looks like it is the 3 stop. But I'm just thinking, looking at these lap times, it looks like they are extending. I'm not sure these are particularly short stints that we're looking at. Yeah, having said that, there are a bit of movement at Ferrari, so maybe that will be an early. Yes, it is. It is going to be another stop for Lewis Hamilton, so that does look like a 3 stop. And is Hamilton pulling the trigger again and forcing everybody else maybe into 3 stopping today? It's back to the medium tyres for Lewis Hamilton, so maybe he could go to the end on that. Let's see how this pit stop goes.
Just seen him dive into the pits, Ted, and almost, well, he is locking up, trying to hit the pit limiter as he heads in to the pit lane to be serviced by Ferrari.
Yeah, this is a bit of a conundrum for Mercedes-Benz. What do they do with George Russell? But George is now only 3.9 ahead of Kimi. Kimi Antonelli's had a much quicker phase of the Grand Prix here. Norris is, as I said, hanging on, and I think both Leclerc and Verstappen were both coming at Hamilton as well.
Well, for Ferrari, they pitted him, had a decent gap to pit him into, because there is no one behind him until Fernando Alonso, who's just coming through turn 1 now, and his next car ahead will be Oscar Piastri, who has been struggling in this race and is a little out there on his own, and then he starts to meet the traffic. So he's got a few corners to get his tyres up to temperature, and then before you know it, there they are, both in the same shot, and Lewis Hamilton starting to climb his way back through.
Antonelli, first 2 sectors of this current lap, 7/10 faster than Russell.
Antonelli flying out there. Either Russell needs to find some more pace here, or it might be trouble later on in the Grand Prix. Now the Mercedes are 1 and 2 with Hamilton pitting. If Antonelli pitted now, he would come out behind Hamilton. There is the real-time gap, about 1.7 seconds.
They're all trying just such different lines. I noticed in turn 10, they're going half a car off the track and trying to find some grip on the paint. I saw Verstappen doing that, and somebody else following him actually, but they're really struggling. But Hamilton then flying on those new tyres, immediately coming at Oscar Piastri.
Down the start, finish straight, with a Cadillac in between them as well. The sole remaining Cadillac of Sergio Perez, with Bottas out of this one. So too for Lance Stroll and the Aston.
So update, Lewis will be on a 3. We are still racing at Norris, so we need to keep these lap times going.
Sweeping round the outside for Lewis Hamilton. That looked good for the 7-time champ, but on much fresher tyres than Oscar Piastri. Hamilton up to 6th now, having pitted 1 lap ago. Piastri now down to 7th.
Yeah, so Lewis is gaining hand over fist on these fresh tyres, despite having to go through Oscar Piastri, who's not having his greatest afternoon in a Formula 1 race. But I guess the Mercedes have to keep their calm now, don't they?
But do they take the bait?
Yes, exactly. But if they do lose position, so there's Hamilton already, look, in the background.
So give me black and white flag for track limits, so no more of those please, otherwise it's a 5-second penalty.
Wow.
And that is exactly what Kimi Antonelli does not need. Karun.
So Hamilton, with that incredible pace on that outlap as we see Verstappen in the pits, has effectively undercut George Russell. The gap now is under 21 seconds. So if Lewis Hamilton, who sets a new fastest lap of 120.6 last time round, 2.6 seconds faster than George, if Mercedes do pit now, they'll come out behind Hamilton. In fact, I think Lewis, this is where it's interesting. If they've only going to do one more stop each, that's the race, isn't it? Does Lewis close down this gap, or does Mercedes pull the pin and end up behind him? How does that play out? Effectively, we think they both have one more stop to go.
Fastest lap last time around for Hamilton. Verstappen, though, in with a slow stop on the Red Bull. He feeds back out to this race in 7th place. This is a real conundrum for Mercedes now to monitor, with both cars split by less than 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, and they're just, Russell's about to come across a lot of traffic. He's just passed one of the Williams, and ahead of him then you've got Bortoletto and Sainz, so a lot of traffic. And at this phase, Antonelli has a lot more pace, and he's very close to getting into the overtake window as well of George Russell. So Russell has not enjoyed this part of the Grand Prix pace-wise.
Does Russell want to be overtaken by his teammate on track, or does, as Karun was saying, pull the pin and come in for Mercedes? Or do they try and do some sort of split strategy between the two Mercs? But whoever comes off worse, they will feel the wrath of it. Nico Hülkenberg into the pits. Looks like this might be for a retirement. And a little bit of work going on down there. That would be a real shame for Hülkenberg. We're hearing the engine is gone on that Audi, and he falls out of the points. Could have been on for his first this year. Sadly not to be for the German.
Look at this, Antonelli homing in, always several tenths faster per lap, as Russell desperately wants that Williams to get out of the way down there at turn 10 of Carlos Sainz.
Antonelli was almost a second faster last time around. He is honing in on George Russell. About half a second adrift, but they do have a Williams in front of them. Should get out the way as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Hamilton closing in on his teammate, running different races of the two Ferraris, with Leclerc having started this Grand Prix down in 10th. Here comes Antonelli then, as Sainz comes into the pits, as you can see. But Antonelli, with the benefit of straight line mode, bit of overtake boost as well. Down into turn 1, hits the brakes, closes into his teammate. This was all looking pretty for George Russell, but is it just starting to come undone for the Brit?
And Leclerc has to let Hamilton through here. They're on different strategies, and indeed, that's exactly what happens. So Lewis flying along, bringing himself right into contention and putting Mercedes under pressure here as to what to do. So if you leave it too long, you've wasted the chance.
Let me know what times I need to do. 20.9, Charlie's in 4th. You have a different strategy.
20.9s, and he's done what did he do? 20.7. You know, you sense Lewis smells a victory here. Lewis Hamilton, definitely. That excited, urgent message there was, we might be able to do this.
Hamilton, 686 days ago was his last time on the top step of the Rocheminor Grand Prix. There's a much wider line there from Kimi Antonelli coming through 10.
That was the paint I was talking about. They're going on to, some of them in turn 10.
0.3 of a second. This is the closest Antonelli has been round the final corner. The Mercedes being boxed in here by the Ferrari pit call for Hamilton a few laps ago. Russell, who had command of this race, but it's now falling by the wayside. Is he going to fight this one? He is. He moves to the middle of the track, defending from Antonelli. George Russell holds the line into turn 1, but runs much deeper. Antonelli's going to get the better run out of the corner. The two Mercedes almost side by side. Antonelli just has to tuck back underneath his teammate as we head towards turn 4.
Playing beautifully into the hands of Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari if they start squabbling.
Mercedes surely have to make a call at some point. They'll have to stay out to try and fight with the Ferrari of Hamilton, but their two drivers both want the victory. Kimi Antonelli, the man who heads the Drivers' Championship by a whopping 66 points from Lewis Hamilton, 68 points clear of teammate George Russell, but Russell desperate to get his recharge back on in this championship.
Within 6 or 7 laps, Hamilton will be with them, and then they've all got to stop one more time probably. But that will be 5 or 6 laps if they start squabbling.
One thing to keep in our minds is that Kimi Antonelli has already been warned for track limits. One more indiscretion and a penalty will come his way. Here he is.
Give me a reminder for track limits. Let's not take any risks.
Beat you to it, Bono. No risk for Kimi Antonelli. Is that just a little bit of a cool down for the young Italian, hunting down the race leads? We tick over for lap 34.
Yeah, Russell a tiny bit faster on that overall lap, but it was all a bit scruffy down in turn one on that particular lap, wasn't it? And Russell now with some decent clear air in front of him, actually. They've got 500-600 meters gap now before they start getting to another scrap with Lawson and Colapinto.
Yeah, he's just, as you say, lost a bit of ground on that last lap around. Gives us a chance to check in with Karun.
Yeah, Hamilton now the gap under 11 seconds, 10.7 to George Russell. Bear in mind, he came out of the pits 25 seconds behind, so he's more than halved that the deficit in just 6 laps. He will hit a bit of a plateau as the tyres start to settle down, of course. But to your point, Martin, we're going to get a situation. They've got one more stop to go. Lewis will have fresher tyres to attack. It is going to ramp up. At some stage, Mercedes need to think of the big picture.
Am I catching now? You are catching really well. Keep pushing, keep pushing.
Nice positivity from Lewis Hamilton's race engineer, and you are catching them really well already with the fastest lap, last lap around for Hamilton, a 1:21.0, for Russell a 1:23.4, a 1:23.7 for Antonelli, who just backed up that last lap around.
It won't be long for George. We are at risk from Norris behind, 3.9 seconds.
Yeah, Lando's keeping himself in play as we talked about, but Lewis then, he's just constantly taking 2.5 seconds, 2 seconds here, there and everywhere. Gap down to 9.4 now. It's not long now before he'll see the 2 Mercedes in the distance.
Yeah, here they are coming through turn 4, and Lewis Hamilton just coming out the exit of turn 3 now. So not long to go then for George. So pit stop imminent for the race leader.
So let's not slow each other down racing. We need to keep that gap to Norris nice and healthy, now at 4.3.
So they've read the same as us. Those 2 fighting plays into the Ferrari hands of Lewis Hamilton. And just a reminder to both drivers, particularly Antonelli, who is chasing, don't waste time fighting each other. We are still racing a Ferrari behind us.
And what's going to be interesting is how long it takes Lewis Hamilton to get past Lando Norris. He'll have some pretty good tyres still when he gets there. You can see the Mercedes of George Russell floating through turn 12 there at the back end of the car. And Antonelli just in the turbulent air of his teammate now. He's stalled out a little bit, hasn't he? And also track limits, and also the team message of do not waste time fighting each other. But he's got such an extra amount of power with the overtake mode down the pit straight. And but Russell will now know that, and will know where he's got to use his battery pack to defend as well.
What's going to help Hamilton even more is he hasn't had to waste time getting past Lando Norris, who comes into the pits and heads back out onto the hard tyre. Both Ferraris go through. Hamilton and Leclerc running very different races here, and there is the call though from Mercedes to George Russell to box this lap.
That's why it's critical for Russell to have kept that position, why Antonelli was so feisty. Russell gets first dibs on the pit stop, and that's going to buy him a couple of seconds extra getting on those fresh tyres. But he's still got to go. We've still got 30 laps to go in this race. That's a long way for a set of tyres.
Yeah, we're over halfway distance now, and we are getting a flurry of pit stop action again. So expecting Russell at the end of this lap to come into the pits, Antonelli to stay out, and just keeping it within the white lines. Antonelli, one more warning and he will have one more indiscretion and have a penalty. But both Mercedes sliding through the right-hander as we come around the final corner and into the pits for our race leader George Russell, who slows it all down, hits the pit lane speed limiter and heads towards his Mercedes garage. Now it's on the team. Quick stop needed for the Brit. And they deliver. That all looked pretty smooth to me. 2.8 seconds.
Yeah, it was a good one. And Hamilton only 4.8 behind Antonelli now. So Mercedes have got their hands full with their former megastar in the Ferrari, as Russell then comes out in some reasonably clear air. And that phase of the Grand Prix was not good for George Russell, but he is still ahead of Lando Norris.
He clung on, didn't he? He clung on, and he needed to, because there, as you say, is Norris. A few seconds either way, a lap too early, a lap too late, and that could have been roles reversed.
It won't be long, Kimi. Got to cover Norris.
And there's the call for Kimi Antonelli to cover Lando Norris. It won't be long this lap, maybe one more.
Yeah, so that buys him 2 laps worth of tyre life over his teammate, doesn't it? So if they're going to leave him out there to cover off Norris, that will then allow Lewis Hamilton to... How many laps has Hamilton done? 9. He's done 9 laps on these tyres now, Lewis Hamilton.
Antonelli's coming in. Feeds off to the right-hand side before the final corner beckons. The race leader, Kimi Antonelli, pitting. Lewis Hamilton then crosses the start-finish line and takes the lead of this Grand Prix. Hard tyres for the Italian, 19 years of age, who leads this championship, and it's another 2.8 seconds stop on the dot for Antonelli. Where is Russell? Round the final corner now, onto the start-finish straight. Antonelli heading out of the pit lane now. This is going to be tight, but it should be Russell speeding through with the benefit of tyres heated up and the momentum. He does indeed, as Antonelli feeds in just ahead of Lando Norris, and only just, but Norris will have the advantage of tyres up to temperature, as well as the confidence through the right-hander. Antonelli's got to deal with a lap car ahead of him. It's Ollie Behrman's Haas. Behrman gets out of the way, and by the time they get to the braking zone, he's stabilised and just held it ahead of Norris.
Yeah, the power of fresh tyres. They very nearly lost track position there to Lando Norris. They were talking about that, but what now in this phase? What are we going to see between the 2 Mercedes drivers? And Lewis Hamilton then now leads the race, doesn't he? So Hamilton out front. And let's see what kind of pace he can keep on these medium compound tyres.
Hamilton out in front, who pitted earlier than the 2 Mercedes. The 2 Mercedes not biting immediately and jumping into the pits to cover, staying out right on the brink of breaking their strategy, but they held firm. We'll see if it pays off come the end of 66 laps, but we're well over halfway distance now. So Hamilton has the lead. Leclerc almost 15 seconds behind. Leclerc out of this one, not in the running for victory, having started down in 10th as Russell clears the Alpine and heads down into turn 1. And speak of Leclerc, he's coming into the pits at the end of this lap. Karun.
Yeah, so Lewis Hamilton has got to do one more stop. He's got a set of brand new hard tyres. Oh, radio.
And we are planning other 7 laps on this set. This is our race. Give everything these 7 laps. It's the critical moment. We have our chance.
Right, so he's got 7 laps, which will mean, Harry, that he'll still have 20 laps to go after that, which tells me that they're going to put on that hard tyre. In this phase of the race, where he's been extremely fast, let's remember, he's had a set of mediums against people who've been on the hards, and I think the medium tyre has given him that performance advantage to build the gap to 16 seconds. He's going to now come back at George in the final phase of this race with fresher tyres.
Leclerc riding on board with the other Ferrari driver, with Russell behind, not making it easy for the Brit, and closes the door on Russell, but Russell elbows his way past and gets all squirrely on the exit, but that is not what Russell would have wanted. Maybe it's what he would have expected.
Yeah, so key move there for George Russell. He could not afford to let Leclerc slow him down. Leclerc, of course, is out of phase pit stop wise. Antonelli's just done his fastest lap of the Grand Prix, remains 1.4 behind Russell. They're both now lapping faster than Hamilton. This is too close to call. Too close to call as to what's going to happen in the closing stages.
Stick with us, because those closing stages are going to be crucial. George Russell, who started on pole, fighting to restart his season and claim back some much needed points and show us, the team, that it's not all about Kimi Antonelli, but Lewis Hamilton searching for a first victory in red.
Alonso.